Now, like the creepy little justice cuck that I am, I've been trying to keep up to date with the Diddy
Sean
case.
Diddy Combs. Sean Diddy Combs
Was arrested in New York City and charged with
serious sex trafficking charges and racketeering, stealing
And just
several
hearing
animals
about what this
from the
guy's done
Dallas
has
Zoo.
made me think that this dude's villainous as like
Like
cartoon villain evil. With that said, welcome back to Daisy Chain Creations. Today I'm making a diorama of how the Diddy trial's going. Probably. So the plan for the build, on a 6x6 inch base, I'll build up a small courtroom scene, 3D sculpting a villainous P. Diddy with comic villain accurate twisty mustache and his lawyer. The lawyer in question being a life-sized bottle of baby oil working for Johnson & Johnson Associates. Then I'll throw in a desk for some good measure for the trial to determine how much of a bad boy Diddy really was. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's boogie. Now it's time for the build itself. So I love Blender. And if you want to get into anything remotely resembling 3D, do yourself a favor and teach yourself this program. So I'll be using Blender to create the P. Diddy model, the chairs, and the baby oil bottle lawyer. So like every build, I start out by blocking the rough shape of Diddy. I use reference photos with accurate dimensions. This is a very simple low resolution build of the different limbs in a neutral pose. The important thing at this stage is just making sure the scale is correct. Once this is all done, you're left with a low poly but easy to manage outline of our bad boy. And there he is. Haunting, isn't it? With the base mesh of Diddy done, I moved on to building the chair. For this, find yourself a reference photo of a chair. If you can, a chair that seems kinda judgy, the sort of chair that loves justice. The one that I found wasn't exactly giving that, but he seemed cool enough. With the help of the multiple reference photos, I constructed the exoskeleton of the chair before creating the seat and the backrest. With the chair all done, it's time for the fun part, which is turning this Sims 1 looking sex criminal into a Sims 3 looking sex criminal. Now I started with some superficial detailing of the exposed surfaces of the body, keeping in mind that he is going to be clothed, so I'm sorry you freaks. I started with giving the chest some volume, creating knuckles, hands, wrist tendons, before surface landmarks on the legs and the ankles. I then turned a cube into a pair of prison chic plimsolls, and then finally started building up the face. Similar to the body, start with a low-res face mesh, just to make plotting the landmarks a lot easier before jacking up the resolution and remeshing. At that point, you can get some actual sculpting done that looks somewhat anatomically accurate. With the two spheres that make up Diddy's peepers, I build up his lids before remeshing and smoothing everything down. Similar to his lips, everything is roughly done in a lower resolution before cranking up the voxel count and letting your computer really beg for the sweet embrace of death. With the head placed on the body, I did some small finer details like veins, small landmarks, freckles, that are absolutely 100% guaranteed to be obvious when it's printed. With the body all done but in its separate parts, I bored over the chair and mocked up the desk just so I can visualize where everything's going to sit before doing some rough poses. With the posing all done, it's time to make him look a little bit more like himself. For the hair, I drew a mask over the surfaces that need hairing. Once I was happy with how it looks, I applied a solidify modifier so the hair comes out from the face before using a fur texture brush to make it look hairy. Similar to the facial hair, I applied a mask over the torso to make up a shirt and then pants. Once I had the mask on, slap on a solidify modifier, and then I can start moving around some voxels to give the shirt and pants a bit more texture, keeping in mind of the position of the arm so you can consider how the fabric would sit on him. And finally, I'll be adding on a cartoon supervillain accurate mustache. I took my inspiration from Mr. Snrub, and to make it look slightly sillier, I wanted the mustache to sit on top of his regular facial hair. Now onto our lawyer extraordinaire, a human-sized bottle of baby oil. I subdivided a cube, threw on a mirror modifier, and just followed the dimensions of the bottle of the oil. After this, I constructed the neck and the lid of the bottle out of cylinders. Now, what makes a good defense lawyer? Is it the lack of a moral compass, an unquenchable thirst for money? No, you idiot, it's a good suit. Starting with a flat plane and a mirror modifier, I wrapped this around the bottle to create the shirt. I repeated the process to make up the collar, the tie, as well as the blazer. With the bottle all done, it's time to do some final posings in the scene. Now, I wanted to make them look like they're whispering to each other, so everyone got tilted towards the center, and the suit jacket arms were pushed, pulled, and deflated to give off the impression that it's just hanging off the bottle and draping over the table. With the poses all done, it's time for some printing, baby. I printed all the parts separately, making sure the bottle lid was going to be detached, as I'll be making a clear resin bottle for the final product. With the parts all printed and some processing done, I made a silicone negative mold from the printed bottle, excluding the lid. Now, I started with some cardboard to hold the mold and lined this cardboard with some old clay just to keep things liquid tight. For the negative mold, I used a 2-part silicone, mixed it all together, and left that to sit and dry. With the silicone now solid, I took my most delicate box cutter, removing all the cardboard and clay. This did a great job of keeping things sort of where they should be, which was great. After removing the positive of the bottle, I mixed up a 2-part clear resin and poured that in. While the resin's drying, here are some close-ups of the prints after they've been processed. And if you're wondering, that thin mustache is gonna snap, you are 100% correct. It snapped 4 times during this build. With a white undercoat on the models drying, I started to create the base. Now, I started by using a 6-inch canvas frame, which I topped with some gesso board. After this, I used some hobby foam just to cushion the base on the desk. To help sell the courtroom look, I got my clammy mitts on some dollhouse carpet, and I settled on a drab grey. Now we can get to the fun part. So with all the base coats dried, I painted the chairs a deep mahogany brown. I didn't love how the brush strokes were looking, so in the end I took the easy option, dragged out the air gun for a much cleaner finish. Similarly, I mixed up some red and some white to get that baby oil bottle lid. With the airbrush still out, I used a little bit of blue tack to block off the shirt and the tie on the suit, before giving the blazer a nice deep blue coating. Now, I've been using a wet palette recently, and I'm really liking how little paint I'm wasting. I took out the brushes, used a little bit of blue just to fill in any gaps that were missed with the spray. With the blazer drying, it's time to start on the Diddy paint job. Now, I'm going for more of the orange jumpsuit sort of a vibe, so I laid down a base coat of light orange. Unfortunately, in hindsight, I should have done the classic vertical black and white striped prison uniform, but there's no way I'm starting this build again. As for the rest of his body, all of the exposed skin was given a nice deep coating of Born Fang brown. For the face, I made up a series of washes to bring out some of the definition and texture. Now, the first wash was a Doom Bull brown, thinned down to a wash. Wash number 2 is a thinned down mix of Rhinox hide and Cantor blue. This is to highlight some of the darker tones, poke a little bit of that into similar spots as before, focus more on the areas where you want to see that contrast. Wash 3 was a thinned down Cadian flesh tone and Administratum grey. Now, I used this one to start a little bit of the highlighting, placing this on any sort of raised areas where light would be bouncing off. I've got to say, shout out to Wiltrich's Miniature Art. This is where I pinched some of the recipes for the washes. He does a really good video on painting dark skin tones. With his hair all blacked out, 2 little dots for freckles, and the washes all dried, I did a tiny pin wash of that Doom Bull brown just to give his lippies a little bit of colour. Now, the whole purpose of using the clear resin was that I wanted to have a clear bottle, and just as expected, the resin took on a whole bunch of little air bubbles which just increased the opacity. And unfortunately, it didn't really matter in the end because the bottle's mostly hidden behind a table. Oh well, lesson learned. With the bottle clean, polished and processed to the best of my ability, I squeezed him into his little suit before gluing on his lid. To To finish off the suit, we're going for a classic Republican red for the tie, just because it makes sense. I also used a little bit of that dark wash from the face just to emphasize the folds and creases in the suit. Then I took some light blue to the edges and the peaks and the folds, just for a little bit of extra highlighting. Now with the paint jobs mostly done, let's do a little bit of light carpentry. I measured up some balsa wood that I had knocking around and just made up a very simple desk. I lined the panels with some coffee stirrers to make up a skirting before gluing it all together and putting it aside to dry. With the desk sitting in the corner drying, I had another look at the uniform and I just thought it was a bit too bright. It looks like he was attacked by a grizzly neon highlighter, so I did another base coat with a dark orange just to peel back some of that vibrancy. Now that our desk is sturdy and all dried, the old airbrush was fired up again and I coated the desk in the same mahogany brown as the chairs. Now we're rounding the home stretch. Now, before finalising the paint job on Diddy, I thinned down some black wash, applying these to creases and pleats in the clothing, as well as areas where clothing and skin might cause some shadowing, making sure to wipe away any excess with a paper towel and some white spirits. After all of this, a dry brush of some Tamiya brown to highlight the fingers and any peaks that sunlight would otherwise bounce off. Then a generous dry brushing of the light orange to bring back a little bit of the colour to the shirt and blend the colours together a little bit. And to finally finish everything off, the eyes got a light coat of Administratum Grey. Cool, so finally time for some pupils. Now everyone take a deep breath. That was too deep, but whatever. Now, if I can just have the most difficult part to film with the build completely not in focus, that would be great. Perfect. And finish off those peepers with a little bit of gloss varnish. And that makes our trial of the century. Sorry on the delay in getting this one out. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you made it this far, please like, subscribe, chuck us a comment. It really helps with the exposure. Cheers, you legends, and I'll see you on the next one. On the next Daisy Chain, I'm recreating Goya's Saturn devouring his son, but with the Liver King and Joe Rogan, or Derek from More Plates and Dates, depending on how this terrorism threat thing pans out. Either way, the Liver King's up next. Here are the glamour shots.